I was sitting in my car outside my son's baseball practice, watching other dads high-five their kids and feeling like a fraud. When I realized I had no idea how to be a father, the revelation hit me like a punch to the gut as I watched David, my 9-year-old, walk toward my car with slumped shoulders. His team had won 8-3. He'd gotten 2 hits, and he looked miserable. I'd been checking emails during most of the game, glancing up just long enough to give him a thumbs up when he looked my way. "How'd it go, buddy?" I asked as he climbed into the passenger seat. "Fine," he mumbled, staring out the window. "I saw you get that hit in the 3rd inning. Nice swing." "That was the 5th inning, Dad, and it was a ground ball to second base." The silence that followed was deafening. I'd been sitting 30 feet away from my son for 2 hours and had missed most of his game. Worse, he'd noticed. I was Michael Thompson, successful financial advisor, homeowner in a good neighborhood, provider for my family. I worked 60-hour weeks to give my wife Sarah and our kids, David and 6-year-old Emma, everything they needed. Good schools, nice house, family vacations, college funds already started. On paper, I was crushing fatherhood. In reality, I was barely present for it. "Dad." David's voice was small. "Are you proud of me?" The question hit me harder than it should have. "Of course I'm proud of you. Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. You don't seem very interested." I wanted to argue, to tell him about all the ways I showed interest, signing him up for baseball, buying him equipment, driving him to every practice. But sitting there in my car, looking at my son's downcast face, I realized he was right. I was interested in his activities, but I wasn't interested in him. When had I last asked David what he thought about something that wasn't school or sports? When had I last had a real conversation with Emma that went beyond, "How was your day?" and "Did you brush your teeth?" I was present in their lives logistically, but emotionally, I was a ghost. That night, I tried to engage differently. At dinner, instead of scrolling through work emails on my phone, I asked Emma about her art project. "It's a picture of our family," she said, holding up a drawing of stick figures. "That's great, sweetheart. Tell me about it." She pointed to each figure. "That's Mommy, that's me, that's David, and that's Patches." Patches was our dog. "What about Daddy?" I asked. Emma looked confused. "You're not here for dinner very much." The words hit like a sledgehammer. In my 6-year-old daughter's picture of our family, I didn't exist. The next few weeks became an exercise in trying to force connection where none existed. I started coming home earlier, determined to be more present. But presence, for me, meant homework supervision and bedtime enforcement. I'd sit with David while he did math problems, correcting his work and pushing him to try harder. I'd read Emma bedtime stories, but I was always checking the time, calculating how much sleep I'd get before my 6 a.m. workout. I planned a father-son fishing trip with David, thinking it would be the kind of bonding experience good dads provide. We spent 4 hours on a lake, and I spent most of it giving him instructions about casting technique and fish behavior. David caught one small bass and seemed relieved when I suggested we head home. "Did you have fun?" I asked on the drive back. "I guess," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. I organized a daddy-daughter date with Emma, dinner at her favorite restaurant followed by mini golf. She was excited at first, but by the end of the evening, she was asking when we could go home. I'd spent the entire time teaching her proper putting stance and explaining the rules instead of just playing with her. The breaking point came during what was supposed to be a fun family game night. I blocked off the entire Saturday evening. No work calls, no distractions. We set up Monopoly, and I was determined to make it educational, teaching them about money management, strategic thinking, negotiation skills. An hour in, Emma was fidgeting and asking if she could watch TV instead. David was mechanically moving his piece around the board without any enthusiasm. Sarah was giving me looks that clearly said, "You're missing the point." "Come on, guys," I said, trying to inject energy into the room. "This is fun. You're learning important life skills." "I don't want to learn," Emma said. "I just want to play." "This is playing," I insisted. "But it's also—" "Dad," David interrupted, "you're making it weird." The silence that followed was crushing. My own son had just told me I was making family time weird. I was turning every moment into a lesson, every interaction into an opportunity for improvement. I wasn't playing with my children. I was managing their development. That night, after the kids were in bed, Sarah and I had the conversation I'd been dreading. "They love you," she said gently, "but they don't know how to connect with you." "I'm trying," I said. "I'm here more. I'm doing activities with them." "You're performing fatherhood, Mike. You're not being their dad." The words stung because they were true. I'd been approaching fatherhood like a project, with goals and metrics and strategies for success. But my children didn't need a project manager. They needed a father. "I think I'm failing as a dad," I confessed to my brother Tom over beers the following weekend. "And I don't understand why." Tom, father of 4 and somehow the most relaxed parent I knew, studied me. "Failing how?" "I provide for them. I'm involved in their activities. I try to teach them important things, and they seem disconnected from me, like they're just tolerating my presence." "When's the last time you just enjoyed being with them? Like, actually enjoyed it?" I started to answer and realized I couldn't remember. Every interaction had an agenda: character building, skill development, life lessons. When had I last simply delighted in my children's company? That's how I found myself in Dr. James Chen's office, a family psychologist who specialized in father-child relationships. I'd found him through a late-night Google search. Why don't my kids want to spend time with me? Dr. Chen was different from what I'd expected. Instead of clinical and formal, he was warm and direct, with photos of his own kids on his desk and the kind of presence that made you feel like he'd been where you were. "Tell me about being a father," he said, simply. I launched into my usual explanation, how I prioritize their education, their character development, their future success. But Dr. Chen stopped me. "Michael, those are important things. But I'm asking about fatherhood. What does being a dad mean to you?" The question caught me off guard. I'm responsible for preparing them for life, for teaching them what they need to know, for making sure they become good people. "That sounds like you're describing a mentor or a coach," he said gently. "What about being their father?" I stared at him, realizing I wasn't sure what the difference was. Dr. Chen leaned back in his chair. "I've been studying father-child relationships for 20 years, and I've noticed something. The fathers who struggle most are often the ones who confuse fathering with instructing." He explained research from the University of Melbourne that followed 3,200 fathers and their children over a decade. The children who reported the strongest relationships with their fathers weren't the ones whose dads taught them the most or pushed them the hardest. They were the ones whose fathers were most emotionally available and accepting. But isn't it my job to guide them and help them improve? Absolutely. But there's a crucial difference between guiding them and directing them, between teaching them and lecturing them, between caring about their growth and controlling their development. Dr. Chen pulled out a research summary. Many modern fathers operate from what we call the instructor model. They see themselves as coaches responsible for developing every aspect of their child's potential. But the research shows that children bond more strongly with fathers who use a companion model. Fathers who provide guidance and boundaries while simply enjoying who their children are. My stomach sank as I recognized myself completely. I'm definitely the instructor. The instructor model creates distant fathers and performative children. You're constantly evaluating whether they're meeting expectations, whether they're learning enough, whether every interaction is sufficiently meaningful. The children feel like they have to earn your approval through achievement. But don't good fathers want their children to reach their potential? Dr. Chen smiled. Here's what decades of research tell us. Children reach their highest potential when they feel unconditionally loved and accepted by their fathers, not when they feel like they're constantly being evaluated and improved. He continued, the Melbourne study found that children of companion model, fathers showed higher self-confidence, better emotional regulation, stronger family bonds, and, this might surprise you, higher long-term achievement than children whose fathers focus primarily on instruction and development. I thought about all my teachable moments, my constant corrections, my focus on making every interaction meaningful. I've been trying to develop my children instead of just being with them. And how is that working for your relationships? The question hung in the air. Terribly, obviously. Terribly. Changing 9 years of fathering patterns felt like learning to speak a different language, one where silence could be meaningful and play didn't need a purpose. My first attempt was awkward. Instead of planning an educational Saturday activity, I asked the kids what they wanted to do. Their response was immediate. Play video games. The old Michael would have suggested something more productive. The new Michael, armed with Dr. Chen's insights, tried a different approach. Can I play too? David looked at me like I'd offer to fly to the moon. You want to play video games? Why not? What followed was 2 hours of me getting thoroughly beaten at Mario Kart, while David and Emma laughed at my terrible driving. Instead of turning it into a lesson about hand-eye coordination or strategic thinking, I just played badly and enjoyed every minute of it. Dad, you're really bad at this. Emma giggled as my character drove off a cliff for the third time. I know, I said, laughing. It's terrible. Show me how to do that jump thing. For the first time in months, we were just enjoying each other's company without any agenda. But breaking the instructor habit was harder than I'd expected. When David showed me a story he'd written for school, my instinct was to point out spelling errors and suggest ways to improve the plot. When Emma built a tower with blocks, I wanted to explain architectural principles and help her make it more stable. Instead, I bit my tongue and just appreciated what they created. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks later. I'd had a frustrating day at work. A major client had decided to move their account after months of preparation. The old Michael would have hidden his disappointment, maintained his composure, and used the evening to focus on the kids' homework and development. Instead, I walked into the house and said, I had a really tough day. Mind if I just hang out with my favorite people and forget about adult stuff for a while? What happened next changed everything. David immediately abandoned his homework and plopped down next to me on the couch. Emma climbed into my lap and asked if I want to see her latest drawing. Even Sarah looked surprised but pleased. You don't always have to be perfect, Dad, David said. We like you better when you're just you. I almost lost it. Here I'd been trying to be the perfect father figure, and my 9-year-old son just wanted me to be a real person. Want to order pizza and watch something completely mindless? I asked, can we watch that stupid movie with the talking animals? Emma asked hopefully. The old Michael would have suggested a documentary or something educational. The new Michael said, that sounds perfect. We ordered pizza, watched a ridiculous movie, and laughed until our sides hurt. David fell asleep leaning against me. Emma curled up on my other side. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what they should be learning or how they could be improving. I was just being their dad. 8 months later, our family dynamics had completely shifted. Not perfect. We still had disagreements, still struggled with screen time limits, still had days when everyone was grumpy and nothing went smoothly. But we'd learned to be a family instead of a father-led development program. The change wasn't just in our planned activities. It was in the small moments that make up fatherhood. Instead of every car ride being filled with questions about school and lessons about life, we had actual conversations. David told me about his friends, his worries, his random thoughts about everything from dinosaurs to space travel. Emma shared her dreams about becoming a veterinarian and her theories about why cats purr. I stopped trying to turn every moment into a teaching opportunity and started simply being present for whatever moment we were having. The kids began seeking me out, not just when they needed help with homework or wanted permission for something, but when they wanted to share something exciting or when they were upset. They started including me in their inside jokes and silly games. Most importantly, I began to see them as complete people, not as projects in development. David wasn't a student who needed constant guidance. He was a thoughtful, creative boy with his own personality and perspectives. Emma wasn't a child who needed shaping. She was a funny, imaginative little person with her own dreams and ideas. One evening, as we built a completely impractical blanket fort in the living room, not for any developmental purpose, just because it sounded fun, David said something that perfectly captured our transformation. Dad, you're way more fun now that you stopped trying to teach us stuff all the time. I still want to teach you things, I said, adjusting a pillow that was about to fall. I know, but now it's like natural. Like when you're just talking to us instead of trying to make us learn. He was exactly right. When I'd been focused on being the perfect father, I'd turned every interaction into a lesson plan. I'd been so worried about their development that I'd forgotten to develop our relationship. Sarah noticed a change too. "They light up when you come home now," she told me one night. "Before, they just keep doing whatever they were doing. Now they actually run to greet you." She was right. The energy in our house had shifted from dutiful to joyful. Instead of the kids tolerating my presence while I managed their growth, we genuinely enjoyed being together. Dr. Chun had been right about the ripple effects. When I stopped over instructing, the kids became more open to actual guidance. When I started being authentic about my own struggles and emotions, they felt safer sharing theirs. When I stopped treating every moment as a potential lesson, they started learning more naturally through our conversations and shared experiences. The most surprising discovery was how much more myself I felt as a father. For years, I thought being a good dad meant always being the wise authority figure who had answers and taught lessons. But the research Dr. Chin shared showed the opposite. Children thrive when they have fathers who are authentically themselves. Present fathers raise confident children, he'd told me during one of our sessions. When you're genuinely yourself, emotions, uncertainties, humanity, and all, you give your children permission to be genuinely themselves too. Looking back now, I realized that my fatherhood wasn't failing because I didn't care about my children. It was struggling because I'd forgotten how to simply be with them. I'd been so focused on being the perfect father that I'd stopped being Michael, and my children had been missing their actual dad. The night I knew our family had truly healed was different from that evening in the car when David asked if I was proud of him. This time, we were playing catch in the backyard. No formal practice, no instruction about technique, just throwing a ball back and forth as the sun set. "Dad," David said, catching a particularly wild throw, "remember when you used to always try to fix my throwing form?" "Yeah," I said, a little embarrassed. "Sorry about that. It's okay, but I like this better. Just playing." "Me too, buddy. Me too." As we continued throwing the fading light, Emma ran out to join us, and soon we were all just laughing and playing together. No agenda, no lessons, no improvement goals. Just a father enjoying time with his children. "I love you, Dad," Emma said out of nowhere as she chased the ball that had rolled away. "I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you." "We know," David said simply. "We can tell now." As we headed inside that night, I thought about all the fathers out there who might be struggling the way I had, who love their children deeply but have gotten lost in the pressure to be the perfect dad, the teacher, the guide who always has the right answer. The truth is, saving my fatherhood didn't require learning to love my children more. It required learning to be myself with them more. It required understanding that being a father isn't about perfecting my children. It's about being present with them as they discover who they're meant to become. Today, when other fathers ask me for parenting advice, I tell them this: stop trying to be the perfect father. Start trying to be a real person who happens to be raising children. Stop trying to teach them in every moment. Start trying to connect with them in every moment. Stop instructing them like students. Start enjoying them like the unique people they are. Because here's what I learned. Fatherhood isn't about raising perfect children. It's about imperfect people growing together. And that makes all the difference in the world. If you're reading this and recognize yourself in my story, please know this. Your children don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present. They don't need you to have all the answers. They need you to be genuinely yourself as you figure out together. The research is clear, the path is proven, and the transformation is possible. You just have to be brave enough to stop trying to be the perfect father and start trying to be their real dad. Trust me, real connection is so much better than perfect instruction.